On behalf of the Buffalo Sabres and all of our great fans, we are proud to select from the University of Michigan, Owen Power.
Not a surprise, 6'6" tall. You can see the height right there. Great head of hair. Says he's going back to Michigan to play for the Wolverines. Jeff Gordon, if you drafted the number 1 overall, would you want him in your organization now or to go back to college? What would be your opinion?
I think when you take the first pick overall, everything that goes along with it, you'd like to have him on your team right away. I understand the reason he would go to Michigan, but I always felt like if I sent Lafreniere back to Rimouski, that maybe they would have sent me there with him.
Not a bad place. Rimouski is French for surprise. Could he be as good as Victor Hedman, Sam? No, that's a comp we're here.
Yeah, there are a lot of comparisons, and I think one of the main reasons why is because you're seeing a tall player who doesn't overexert himself physically, doesn't initiate the physicality, yet uses his body effectively to defend. So when you think about Hedman, he's a really difficult player to play against now, but you don't think of him like Shea Weber, that he's going to run you through the end boards. And I think Owen Power is going to grow into that and develop that part of his game a little bit more. But I don't really think he's going to be that big banger and crasher. But man, this really can impact the organization. A 6'6" defenseman who skates like that. I mean, if you had to go out and acquire this in the free agent market, it would cost you a fortune separately. Or if you had to $40 million signing bonus, if you had to trade for it, it's costing you a lot.
Yeah.
Now you get this guy for free.
Hey, I couldn't agree more. I think here's one thing. We're talking about where Owen Power and how we project him. Let's take it all the way back. We saw what he did growing up. Obviously, you would have had a chance to see him play back home. He then goes to Chicago Steel, which is the unconventional route, but they have a great program that just won the Clark Cup again. So he goes to Chicago Steel, plays there, lights it up there, goes to University of Michigan. For a freshman, I thought he lit it up too. You are on the college hockey beat. Then he goes to the men's worlds and says, hey, look out, NHL players. I can play here too. And as the tournament went along, ends up being a key piece of the goal. So from a progression standpoint, he might want to go back to Ann Arbor for one more year and hang on the campus. And they've got an amazing team. One of the best college teams ever assembled. But all that being said, he's played so much hockey and excelled at all these levels.
Yeah, Michigan is an absolute wagon. There were no fans. He didn't get the college experience last year. Frozen Four in Boston. Last time Michigan won a natty was in Boston.
Sure.
It could be a lot of fun for him. And then join the Sabres maybe in March or at the end of the year.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of I'll Hang Up and Listen. I am your host, Duane, joined by producer Steve. Long time no see, Steve. Thanks for hopping on. Obviously, a lot to talk about, as we just saw there. As expected, the Sabres take my boy, friend of the program, Owen Power. I got the power. Love to see it. Honestly, I think any other choice but that probably would have been a mistake. Nothing against the other, guys that went in the top 5, guys like Hughes and Beniers and I think like Tavish. Obviously, Michigan University set a record for most players taken in the top 10 picks. You had 4 guys. Was it all? Did all 5 go?
Four were in the top 5 picks.
Yeah, 4 of them.
The 5th pick in the first round was another young man. Who was he? Mackie Samaskevich to the Florida Panthers. I think it was the 24th.
Yeah, so we had 4 guys from Michigan University going the top 5
round. Yeah,
I know now.
The first 5 picks. Yeah.
Now I know Luke Hughes hasn't played a game yet for Michigan University. I believe he hasn't. But they're obviously unbelievable bloodline there. Going to New Jersey whenever they deem him ready. Going to go play with his brother, Jack. Really exciting. I'm sure at some point too. I guarantee we'll probably see all 3 Hughes brothers on the same team at some point, right? It's
probably at like the Canadian, the World Tournament. The Olympics. They'll probably all end up being there. Yeah. Are they Canadian boys or American?
No, they're American. They're American.
Okay, they're American. Well, the hell
get your shit together.
Sorry, man.
No, they're all American boys.
At this point, the Canadians and the Americans, we're all buddies here. We're all buddies here in the NHL. It's hard to keep track, but the story in this draft is the Russians are coming to Buffalo.
They're sucking down that Russian gas, Kevin Adams. I love to see
first Russian picks since 2016. And these are looking like some pretty damn good picks. They're second and third round picks, but they are good picks.
Big boys too.
For the most part, yes. For the most part, yes, very big boys. One of the big boys needs to get here and start eating some chicken wings, but the other big boy, he's got some weight to him. But again, let's remember that every single one of these kids is 18 years old. Most 18-year-olds that you see are usually on the smaller side, and if they aren't, they're playing football. They're not playing hockey.
Yeah, so, and you want to know what?
That's fine by me.
There's a lot to touch on too. Obviously the Sam Reinhart trade. We already kind of covered this. The Rasmus versus Duane trade, which again we'll touch on that a little bit more too. We did cover that was hilarious, was it not? That was hilarious. But and then some other news: Montreal making a very controversial pick at the end of the first round. In Logan, I forget how to pronounce him. Malus, Malus. But yeah, very controversial pick. Something I don't agree with. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that already. Kid even said he didn't deserve to be drafted. And Mark Bergevin, obviously, who is also involved with the scandal going on in Chicago right now, which is disgusting enough as it is also obviously involved with this pick with the Montreal Canadiens. Not surprising with him.
Just doubling down on not giving a shit about
literally
anybody but himself.
Who was the player from LA too? Apparently there was some smoke around him. The one that got was in a lot of trouble for domestic assault.
Was he the first round guy?
No. He was an already active. I can't remember. Maybe one of the people listening can fill me in. But it's God, what is his name? But there was somebody who mentioned to me on Twitter that Bergevin was starts with a K.
Is he one of the prospects, or is he?
No. This is a couple of years ago.
Oh,
he was actually I think he was suspended from the league. Suspended from the league. God, what was his name? I'll find it out right now. It was Slava Voinov. He was suspended by the National Hockey League for domestic assault or domestic violence. Something that happened, and I don't know all the details, but from what I was told, Bergevin was kicking around the idea of signing him. So clearly, like you said, he just doesn't care. It's unfortunate, man, because these. Exactly, like I forget who it was in that video. We talked about it before the show. They were interviewing him, and he was asked, "What about he said, Logan said that he doesn't feel like he deserves to be drafted or in this draft. What makes you? It was not exactly quoting it word for word, but what makes you believe that he does?" And it took him like 15 to 20 seconds to say anything, and then he asked him to elaborate more on the question. And I'm like, how much more do you need this guy to dumb down this question for you, man? Like it's pretty cut and dry. Like, what makes you think this kid deserved to be drafted after what he did and what he said in reference to it? I don't deserve to be drafted. I have to grow up, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, blah, blah. I'm not, I take this very seriously, but, a guy didn't have an answer. It's just,
I think another question worth asking is, how can this kid who is 18 years old and knows full well he fucked up have more common fucking sense than you, a grown-ass adult who made this decision on a national scale?
Yeah, and, that was – I remember that was one of the first things when I fell asleep near the end of the first round and because it was taking forever. And I woke up Twitter, and that was one of the first things I saw was this kid actually got picked. Are you kidding me? Like, it's just,
when I was doing the live tweeting for Two Goalies, one mic for that first round of the draft, and I tried to keep up on all the picks for Buffalo yesterday. I wasn't going to do 100.
No, I don't expect it.
5 other picks. I got stuff to do, but. I had it on all day, and I listened to about 8 hours worth of broadcasts about kids that I'll never hear the names of again, most likely. But hopefully I hear about a good amount of these kids. But if they're not playing for Buffalo, goddamn.
No, I agree.
But yeah, no. When that pick got pulled up, for Montreal in the first round, all I thought was that name is familiar, and it is not familiar for a good reason.
Yeah, and unfortunately, now the victim, the girl who had to go through that, now sees this kid that, essentially caused her a lot of trauma in her life mentally. Has to, relive this all over again. This kid that did her wrong, obviously it's embarrassing for her to have some, content of that nature with her shared with complete strangers. And then, she's probably reliving it again. And I feel bad. I feel terrible for her and her family. It's just, it's wrong. And, the Montreal Canadiens owe her a personal apology. And, I don't know how else to say it. It's disgusting. It's gross. I do believe in second chances, but you essentially rewarded this kid for extremely bad behavior by drafting him in the first round. He just wasn't deserving, unfortunately. So, but we'll move on from that for now. Obviously, as we saw, Owen Power first overall, again, as expected. We had him on a week ago for episode 68 of Two Goalies, One Mike. And the kid, one of the things I took from that episode was the kid is extremely poised, confident, and focused. And, he and even during his interviews, with the media about, what makes him, worthy of, being, I'm not sure worthy of being first overall. What are the best parts of his game? One of the things that really stuck, how confident he said, like, you can literally put me out there in any situation. And it's true. I mean, how many teams have a guy like that? Not even just a defenseman, just a guy like that where if it's penalty kill, power play, last minute of the game, up by one, down by one, he's out on the ice. He's taking care of business. He's blocking shots. He's making the smart plays because we already know from talking to him last week that, the best thing about his game isn't even his physical attributes, his size. It's the high hockey IQ. Like he takes a lot of pride in that, and that's phenomenal. I'm excited. I'm excited to finally have a smart, maybe not offensive defenseman. I'm not saying anything bad about his offensive ability. The kid's a phenomenal skater for his size, but just having a guy in his own end who just plays a smart style of hockey and doesn't fold under pressure. That's what we need. It's what we probably haven't had that probably since the days of Tallinder and Spacek and Tony Ludman. Like, we haven't had that in a long time. Brian Campbell, another name, is we've lacked that confidence and ability on our blue line for over a decade, and it's nice to draft a kid, which costs us nothing. Like they said in the video, it costs us nothing to bring him into the fold. Normally kids like that in free agency cost you quite a bit, and he's costing us nothing. We get him when he comes to Buffalo, probably not this next season, but the following, I'd imagine. You're going to get him on an entry-level deal, and for those 3 years.
For 3 years.
Yep. I'm excited, man. I am so excited. Obviously, again, just, bringing up his kind of the better parts of his game that we already mentioned. In 2009, 2020, 40 points in 45 games with the Chicago Steel. Very, very impressive. He had 3 assists this year for Team Canada in the World Championships tournament. 16 points for University of Michigan in 26 games this past season. Just an unbelievable character player. Just physical attributes are through the roof. Again, he's not the sexy offensive defenseman who's going to consistently carry the puck. But you want to know what? As we mentioned during episode 68, he's not afraid to make those short passes up the ice and have trust in his forwards, which is one of the things that really stuck out to me because, everybody loves a defenseman that can carry the puck up the ice. We've watched Rasmus Ristolainen try and do it for how many years now. But he's not afraid to make that smart play up the ice to his forwards or his centerman or his winger, or if he's under pressure, go D to D. He makes a smart play, and that's very, I think that's an undervalued quality in the NHL right now.
Yeah, I mean, after watching that episode, it was just dumbfounding just how articulate this kid is. Like, if you put a microphone in front of me at the age of 18, I would not have been that well-spoken and confident in my abilities at anything.
I know.
But yeah, the one criticism I saw people saying is that because he is also a left pairing defenseman, that, since we do have Rasmus Dahlin here, it's like which one becomes number one and which one becomes number two. And I think just to borrow just the tiniest little sliver of something from the era of Ralph Kruger, maybe let's not necessarily think of it as first and second pairings. Rather, instead, think about pairing these people, thinking about putting out a pair that meets a specific need. Like if you need to get the puck out of the zone because some of your lines have been out there for 2 minutes, Owen Power is going to be the guy that saves the day and gets you out of your zone and into their zone, gets a few shots on. And then when the face-off is on a certain side, then maybe put out Dahlin's pair. Because, again, I think you're absolutely right that we need a defenseman that is no bull, knows exactly what he's doing, is thinking 5-10 steps ahead. And we really haven't had that. And as much as I love Rasmus Dahlin, his power comes from being an offensive defenseman. He's good at holding line. He's good at what he does, but his game is not as complete at 200 feet of the ice as Owen Powers has the ceiling to be. Oh. And so to have both of them on your left side, I can't see a world where anyone should be mad at that.
People complain too that you need a right-handed defenseman. I mean, almost every team in the NHL has guys who play on the right-hand side that might be a left-handed shot. That's not a big deal. You know what I mean? Like defensemen, professional hockey players, defensemen, they know how to make that adjustment. It's not that big of a deal. Clearly, obviously, you want a right-handed defenseman on that side. But when you play with the ability of a guy like Owen Power or Rasmus Dahlin or even Yoki, they have that ability to make that adjustment. It's not absolutely the end of the world. So I'm excited for the pick. Obviously, I wouldn't have been unhappy. I know there was a lot of smoke around Eklund being the first overall pick, at least on Sabres Twitter. And, I not that I'm just, breathing a sigh of relief that it's that I'm happy that he didn't get picked, but I just felt the best pick in that spot was definitely Owen Power.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately when you're looking at the Sabres as they are, bottom 5 team for many, many seasons, dead last this past year, as much as, yes, do we need center depth? Absolutely. Particularly after the Reinhart move and the imminent Jack Eichel move, whenever that may take place. Again, our 2 best performing centers before free agency starts are going to be Dylan Cousins and Casey Middlestat.
Yep.
And then Cody Eakin's in there somewhere. Gergensons, if he comes back from injury, is somewhere in there. That's grim. So I get everyone's desire to draft promising center talent. That's completely valid, and I hear you. But when you're the Buffalo Sabres and you've been finishing the way you've been finishing, and there's a clear consensus number 1 guy, even in a draft that's had as many question marks hanging over it as this one, Owen Power has been the standout and is the standout. And as Vegas will show you, teams can win with impressive defense. Somehow the Montreal Canadiens did something to outdo that, but yeah, strong defense can win titles.
It does. It can. Look at Chicago. Look at Chicago when they're making their cup runs. I mean, they had Brian Campbell, Brent Seabrook, Duncan Keith in his prime. Those are 3 top end defensemen. I think Brian Campbell might have been even on their third pairing. Again, anybody who's listening, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he might have been a third pairing defenseman. That guy played in an all-star game for Buffalo. He was a big time signing for them when they brought him in after we traded him to San Jose for, I think it was Steve Bernier, and I think it was like a first or a second round pick. That was a big time signing for them. And actually, did he go to? He went to Chicago and then Florida, correct? Yeah, he went to Chicago, Florida, and then back to Chicago. I think he ended his career with the. I want to say he's ended his career with the Chicago Blackhawks. But
which makes perfect sense.
Yes,
but yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you want to think of it like a pyramid scheme, you need a strong base, or the pyramid will fall.
Agreed.
Yes, the big pointy sharp top would be your Jack Eichel type superstar that's leading the charge on the first line. But without that strong base at the bottom holding it all up, it all just crumbles, and then you just got ruins. And
yep, you're not wrong. You're definitely wrong. So we'll go to the 14th overall pick. Obviously, the pick brought in from the Rasmus Ristolainen trade, which was absolute highway robbery, one of the worst trades I think I've ever seen after the Ryan O'Reilly trade.
Oh my god,
it was so funny looking at the thread from the.
Oh my god, the Steve Dangle analysis of that, where they just list off every single, like, all the things that they dumped off to, like, Arizona and then to us
to free up this cap
just to acquire Rasmus Ristolainen.
All $5.4 million of Rasmus Ristolainen. It's just like you were cleaning out that cap space.
Like,
you honestly, I thought for a hot second maybe they're thinking about making a run at Eichel. They're clearing cap space for something. You know, it's not for nothing. Nope.
I don't know. I just got to say, like, I am so happy to be leaving Philadelphia.
I know.
now that the Philadelphia sports, like, now that the Flyers fan base is about to, like, eat itself.
I know. And it's like looking at the thread for the tweet when they announced the trade on the Philadelphia Flyers Twitter handle. It was like looking in a mirror in Sabres Twitter. It's like he should be fired. It was amazing. It's just constant laughing. I remember. Like me and Sean from Point Shot Podcast for episode 69, it was just like, oh, that is unbelievable. We just could not stop laughing. A first, a second, and a replacement player who, honestly, I don't know much about Robert Hagg, but from the looks of it, it's not that hard to be better in your own end than Rasmus Ristolainen. So if he's even if he's 10% better, that's an improvement.
Look, from a production standpoint, I've, obviously having gone to a lot of Flyers games, I've seen the guy in action. He's not as big as Ristolainen, and that's mostly what this deal is about. 1, Rasmus is big. 2, he's a right-handed defenseman. 3, he provides the same kind of game that Gostisbehere provides, but you're trying to get rid of Gostisbehere for some sort of reason.
Yeah.
Maybe personalities are clashing in the locker room. I don't know what it is.
Maybe he doesn't need to change the scenery.
You want Gostisbehere, but not actual Gostisbehere, so you do all this work to acquire Ristolainen, but
whatever.
Hagg and Risto point-wise are similar-ish in production, but the difference is, the Flyers know what Hagg is, and they play him as a third-pairing defenseman, which is exactly where Risto belonged. Yeah. And even though Risto's minutes were getting cut, he was still like a second guy. He's still a top-4 guy on this team. Mm-hmm. So if Flyers are smart, he will not be a top 4 pairing D-man for that team. And he might actually be productive. He might do the things that you want him to do effectively because he's not wearing himself out. If you just want him to throw his body around, he'll do it. Make a couple passes, he'll do it. Hold the line.
Yeah.
But as long as you're making him do all these things on the third line pairing, you'll be okay. But if you're trying to make him a top 4 guy, learn from our mistake. That's not it, Chief.
Absolutely not. But here, and obviously we'll go right to the 14th pick. I believe it was Steve Carmanos that announced it. I don't know.
Yeah. It was not Kevin.
Yeah, we will kick it right over to that selection because it is definitely, an off the board pick. And Isaac Rosine, is it Rosine? I think we'll let him announce it. We'll let him announce it.
Buffalo Sabres are pleased to select from Leksand in the Swedish Hockey League, Isaac Rosen.
Isaac Rosen, Isak Rosine. Take your pick. Tomato. Chicken farm, veal farm. Are you surprised at this pick?
We can use chicken farm and veal farm. He, Coronado, Boucher, guys that I expected to be high risers. Fyodor Svechkov would be the other guy. We haven't seen him picked yet. But there was a lot of talk about Rosen moving up to the draft as we got a lot closer. Talking about a guy that is a lot like Ken Johnson. This is 156 pounds. Yeah. He's obviously very light on his skates. No problem with the hands and the feet when they work and sync at that speed. And you can think the game at that level, you're going to have a lot of success. And a lot of success is what Rosine had. Great puck transporter, goal scorer. At the under 18s, the last 5 games had goals in each one of those. So it's that goal scoring ability. It's so difficult to find, especially in national hockey league.
Oh, yeah, you love to see it.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so some of the basics of aside from what our friends there at the draft day wanted to let us know, is that, yes, unlike Owen Powers, 6'6", 214 pounds, this is a small boy, not even 6 foot and currently 156 pounds. Again, this is one of the many new picks that needs to come over and start eating some wings with the boys. And, he's a Swede, so hopefully he can get in the locker room with Olofsson. Ideally, he gets in the locker room with Dahlin and gets some tree trunks legs in a few years.
Yeah.
But
that's who you got to put him in the gym with. With
put everybody in the gym with Dahlin. Or honestly, if we want to make Okposo useful, if nothing else, Okposo is a big boy.
It's funny because we draft
these boys how to bulk up.
We already have so many Swedish players on the roster, and then you just drafted all these Russian players. At some point, you're going to have a Swedish/Russian mafia, Buffalo Sabres team, just going to be outnumber the American and Canadians. It's going to be kind of funny. I hope it ends up like that because I think
I'm into
funny.
it.
Me too. But with Rosine or Rosen, obviously 18 years old, 156 pounds, 5'11". One of the players that Buffalo previously drafted that he gets a lot of comparisons to is obviously last year's early second round pick JJ Peterka. Great hands, unbelievable one timer. Reminds you a little bit of Victor Olofsson from that spot on the left side. This 2019-2020 at 35 points in 38 games for the junior 20 national team with Sweden. This past season, he had 9 points in 7 games for Sweden in the World Juniors tournament. Currently playing a prominent role for Sweden at the World Juniors Summer Showcase, which is exciting.
I believe he actually scored a goal last night on the power play. I think he did a little. I think he just kind of creeped right in there, waited for some space to open, and just banged it in. And that's the thing I like about this kid is that the criticisms of Olofsson, of course, is that his 5-on-5 game is a little leaves something to be desired, which is totally fair. I love the kid, but I loved him when he was scoring 20, 30 points on the power play with Eichel feeding him, but without him, the gaps are noticeable. But that 100%. said, from a lot of these highlight clips we've been seeing of Rosine, it seems like that he can make these sorts of things happen in any situation. He can take that lethal one-timer, or he can just go in there and deke some kid out of his shorts, make him, look at his own underwear, just trip over his own shoelaces. It doesn't matter. And I like the fact that some of these smaller kids are getting a look. And I think people like, Caulfield and Suzuki, like some of these younger, smaller guys that are making an offensive impact. I think those people's success, in the finals and such, scouts are recognizing that. It's these kids aren't that big, but, it doesn't matter if they're not 6'5", as long as they can be an adult weight and keep the speed and keep the mitts, they'll be and they're willing to get into those dirty areas to, take the shot where it needs to be taken. That's what's important,
And another thing too, he even said it himself, the best part of his game is the ability to use his feet and his speed. This is a game built on speed nowadays, and I like that. That's the direction I think the Sabres are going in, is just trying to become a much faster hockey team. That's kind of why I like this pick. Obviously, he's only 18. He hasn't grown into, he's not an adult yet. He's not a full-grown adult yet. He's going to put on size. He's going to.
Every one of these kids. Yeah. Every one of these kids is children.
100%. Owen Power was listed, I think, at 213. I think he's even heavier than that already. I really think he's a little bit heavier than that. He's probably gonna put on another 15, 20 pounds of solid muscle, which is gonna be detrimental to his development. He's gonna be a really tough guy to play against. With Rosine, you see that first highlight after they picked him from ESPN2 was, his ability to break away from the pack, that breakaway speed, that separation he creates with his speed. The guy leaves a vapor trail. We'll talk about the next Stevie Weeks from Mystery, Alaska. We got him right here in Buffalo out of Sweden, and Isaac Rosine. He just, again, leaves a vapor trail, and I love that speed. He already knows that's the best part of his game. That's what's going to get him to the NHL. That's what's gotten him drafted into the NHL. So I'm excited to see this kid play. Obviously, I'm assuming he'll be here at development camp. You'll get a first look at both these guys, Owen and Isaac. Extremely excited for that. Again, the kid's got some immaculate boots. And we'll see, you know, what's to come of him in the next couple of years. I immediately said in our Trainwreck group checks, like, he's a project player. He's not a guy that's going to be here this year or next. He's a project player. Look for him, you know, a couple of years down the road when he's like 21, 22 years old. That's when I think he breaks into the NHL. He's not a guy that you're going to see next year. He's just not big enough. I mean, granted, we shouldn't criticize size, because look at Cole Caulfield. Look how far he dropped in the draft. Like, he dropped a lot further than he should have, and he came into Montreal and he had some real highlight reel moments. So maybe size isn't everything, but when you weigh 156 pounds and you weren't really projected to go where you were drafted at 14, even though technically it was 13. I'm hard pressed to believe that, he would make his debut this year or next in the NHL.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of these kids, given the fact that they're 18, they could use another year or two in their more junior leagues. Ideally, with the exception of goaltenders, I would like to see, active skaters out there making some sort of ECHL, AHL debuts by the time they're 22. That would make me feel better, that we don't just sit on all this prospect talent and just let it, just kind of simmer in the pot of their junior leagues. Like, we need to see what these kids can do in, some sort of professional landscape, whether it be, over in Rochester or some of our ECHL farm teams, like, that has been a criticism of the Sabres in the past, that we do have prospects, but we never, either we rush them way too soon, like the Casey Middlestat story, or we never give them a look. And so when somebody like Arttu Ruotsalainen broke into the lineup this year, it was very refreshing to see. It's like, yes, this is a kid who's playing at the minor league level. He's doing okay. He's not a certified stud over there, but he's making waves. He's a big part of their lineup. And we gave him a chance in a season where, the stakes couldn't have possibly been lower, and it yielded some positive results. He's got that similar lethal one-timer to Olofsson. Hopefully both him and Olofsson can, convert that offensive success to some 200-foot play. But, again, these are young kids. Like, I think Olofsson's like 24 maybe, and Ruotsalainen's 21, 22. Like, these are young kids. So, the peak for for most superstars is like somewhere between 24 and 28. So, I'm not saying any of these kids are going to be the next Eichel, but there's room to grow. But I just don't want it to be, I just don't want these kids to hang out in Sweden until they're 25 and go, well, I never signed in time to get an ELC. Okay, I guess I'll just stay in Sweden, because I'm sure their life in Sweden is nice. But
I'm sure it is too.
But this small kid, thankfully, there's a trend in this draft. We pick a big boy, we pick a small boy. The small boys make up for the fact that they're small by putting points on the board. Now, this next guy, the 33rd overall pick, Proko Poltapov from Russia, the first Russian pick for the Buffalo Sabres since 2016. He's a fairly big boy. At 18 years old, 6 feet tall, 176 pounds. In his 2020-2021 MHL season, boy landed 46 hits. He will fight you for this puck. Not literally, but he will win the battle, and he will score in any conceivable possible way that he can. Case in point, in that same season, he got 52 points in 61 games. This kid, he's the kid that I jokingly tweeted kind of looked like the oldest O'Doyle brother from Billy Madison.
Yeah.
But this is not a kid I would want to have to line up against on any team. He looks like it's going to hurt to fight him for that puck. And it also looks like, just based on his track record here, that he's winning those puck battles more often than not, and he's making the team pay when he wins.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And like I said, I haven't seen much on him, but I have a couple highlights here from the draft when they did pick him. We'll share those right now.
With the first selection in the second round, the 33rd selection overall, the Buffalo Sabres have selected Prokhor Poltapov from Cheska in the Russian Junior League. Anaheim?
Prokhor Poltapov, Tone. This is one of my guys that I focused in, played for Ceska in the MHL in Russia, really the junior league, the third league over there. This was a guy that got a lot of games in though last year, a lot of viewings. This is different. Had to give people a little bit more of a comfort level in selecting him, as that's the number one thing we've heard. Got decent size, 6 feet, 176. For me, he reminds me a little bit of a guy like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He can score goals. He can set up players. There's a lot to like about his game. He led all them HL skaters 27 goals this year. Are you kidding me? Like, this is a guy that I was surprised that he didn't go yesterday, to be honest with you. When you really dived into the film and you watched him closely, he has first-round ability. Of course, he goes first pick in the second round. Good for him.
Yeah, and Poltapov, going early in the second round, Sabres first pick of the second round. Looks like an unbelievable talent. 6 foot, 176 pounds. Still a little bit more growing to do, putting on some more weight. But again, the first Russian the Buffalo is drafted, I think you said, since 2016. It's been a bit, 5 years. Sabres have kind of avoided drafting players out of Russia, but he looks like he has all the tools to be a good NHL hockey player in a couple of years. I'm not sure, what the decision making will be, whether they bring him right over to Rochester, let him continue to play in CSKA. I think it's CSKA, the CSKA, or however you pronounce it. I
believe this year he did. I think he played one single game in the KHL, so he may want to do a single, because the KHL is when you're playing against full-grown adults. The NHL there is just like their juniors league. So it might be to his benefit to play a season in the KHL, just, get the lay of the land of having to play against full-grown adults, work out and train with full-grown adults who are probably going to help him improve his game in so many different ways that just, dropping him from Russia to Rochester, they both get a lot of snow, but it's definitely a whole different world. But I think the thing that I like a lot about this guy is the comparable to a player like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. When you're in the shadow of players like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, a player like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in Edmonton doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But if that player was on any other team, he'd be the talk of the town, because more often than not, when that guy gets on the ice, he's touching the puck and he's doing something positive for your team. It's not always a goal. It's not always something flashy and incredible, but he's a strong 200-foot player. And I think if Poltapov is going to live up to that hype, that is a wonderful thing for Buffalo to have. That could be the, he's not a center, but that could be the salve on the wound of having just lost a player like Sam Reinhart. If his ceiling is to that level, because I always felt that Reinhart and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins were fairly comparable in the way that they play the game and the way that they see the game.
Yeah, I think Reinhart maybe a little bit more of an intelligent hockey player. Was never flashy or of a sexy hockey player, but Poltapov, I hope that's what we're getting, or something close, or some type of a comparable. Like they said, he was projected to maybe late first, early second, and during that the video of him being drafted. It's exciting. I'm happy that this team, this organization, is finally kind of stretching out and going to other areas of the world for talent, especially Russia, not just Sweden anymore. We've been seeing a lot of Swedish hockey players come into the fold here in Buffalo. So this is the start of exciting things here in Buffalo. And again, like you said, he plays a big game. I'm not too educated on him. I only know what I've read and what I've seen. But one of the first things, obviously, outside of him being the first Russian hockey player drafted by Buffalo since 2016, he had 46 hits in 2020 this past season in the MHL. Can score goals in any conceivable fashion in this past season. Also, 52 points in 61 games in the MHL. Again, this past season, 7 points in 7 games for Team Russia in the World Juniors Tournament. They were silver medalists. So this kid has a nice resume at 33rd overall, first pick of the second round. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. Excited to see what his development, see his development over the next couple of years, and whether he decides to go to the KHL or come right over here to America to play in the AHL with the Rochester. Which again isn't a terrible thing, because at least then you have him into the fold. You have him training, learning the way you want him to play the game over here compared to over there. There's positives for both sides. Depending on where he decides he wants to play. That we're going.
No, go ahead.
Absolutely. And there is something to be said. He's a pick later down on the list for Buffalo, but one of his line mates was also drafted by us this year. And that particular line mate, we'll talk about him later more in depth, is slotted to go to the University of New Hampshire this coming season. And so one of these three Russian players is already crossing the border and coming to the United States next year. And in a perfect world, Poltapov would also come over and get used to Rochester. So hopefully by then, 2/3 of these Russian players who it's always, you never know if they're ever going to actually come. Sometimes they just like the KXL so much because it's such a respected league in their country that they stay where they are. But, if we can get 2/3 of them to come overseas in this next year and they get the lay of the land, they can start to learn the language if they don't already know it. Again, I don't know them on a personal level, so I don't know if Russian is the one and only language they speak. But, get them into the fold, and then at the very least, we have two people that are used to playing together already that could just transition right into that in Rochester, depending how long that second individual chooses to play for the University of New Hampshire. So yeah, I mean, the more red carpet we can lay out for these Russian players to come to the United States and leave the motherland, do what you got to do, make it happen. I want these young kids. Again, I want these young kids in the fold by no later than the age of 22. So if we can get them in sooner and integrate them, let's make it happen. But before we get to that other player, we can talk about the 53rd overall pick in the draft this year, which was Alexander Kisakov.
Kisakov, another Russian, 53rd overall.
Second Russian.
Yep, out of the MHL. I have, we'll pull up that pick.
With the 53rd overall selection in the 2021 NHL Draft, Buffalo Sabres have selected Alexander Kisakov from Dynamo Moscow in the Russian Junior League. The Minnesota Wild are now on the top.
As you heard, the Deputy Commissioner, Bill Daly, said MHL, Russian League, Kisakov, reader, more even strength goals this year than any other first-year draft-eligible player, 26.
Well, when you put up 73 points, 36 of those are goals in 61 games. I don't care what league you're playing in, because you're playing against competition, usually your own age or better. You've done something extremely right, considering that last year he had 2 goals in 34 games. This is a pretty big jump. He's a smaller forward. He's a left-shooting left winger. He's about 5'10", but he's highly skilled. Goal scorer and playmaker. His edge work and his quickness, when you're looking at players who are 5'10" in that category, they've got the fast feet. He's got extremely fast feet. He's got to put on some weight. He's only 150 pounds, but again, he's only a teenager. He's only 18 years old, but he's got the hands, he's got the skill, and he puts points on the board. Kind of a Tyler Ennis style of player. He may not be the guy that, as you're watching, you see him zipping around the ice, making plays. He may not be the most physical because of his size, but his skill level and his hockey IQ and his ability to make plays and make the players on his line better go a long way. And I think that's what we're seeing with Buffalo drafting this young player.
Love the left-handed version of the Ovechkin curve that he uses.
Yeah, and again, like you said, Alexander Kisakov. Excited, another Russian hockey player. Not too far off from the same size as Rosine. Looks like he's a great skater. Unbelievable scoring ability. He led the league in the MHL last season in scoring, I believe.
Yes. Even strength scoring, which is
a big deal.
Which is another big deal. Absolutely.
Yep. So we got the draft report here on him. Small, but with some great boots. Missed the MHL scoring record by a single goal this past season. 73 points, 36 goals in 61 games in the MHL. Not bad for an 18-year-old kid. 10 points in 14 playoff, and that right there sticks out a lot to me. 10 points in 14 playoff games. So clearly he's able to perform well under pressure. The previous season, 18 points in 34 games in the NHL. I'm assuming that was his first season. So obviously the jump from one level to the next, from his first to his second year, was immense. But again, just another kid that just needs to grow. That's another kind of a project. Let him develop, let him put on some size. And one of the comparables he got there was Tyler Ennis, which if this kid's going to be as good as Tyler Ennis, sign me up for that all day because he was a fun hockey player to watch here in Buffalo.
I love Tyler Ennis.
Who didn't?
I was really getting deep into the into my Sabres love like the late 2000s after the I think I needed to take a little time off after the we got so close and then it all just kind of fell apart. That let's not open that can of worms, but we all know what I'm talking about. The late 90s, early 2000s runs that were just so close, but just no cigar. So yeah, like a lot of the hockey that when I basically started watching hockey more so than just like a form of entertainment and a way to talk with my brothers about something that they actually care about. Just watching for the sake of watching. Yeah, it was the Tyler Ennis era, the Thomas Vanek era. I remember many nights shouting, "Greer, what are you doing?"
I like Mike Greer.
I love Mike Greer, but I was watching Mike Greer like on his way to retiring. And again, I love the guy. He does a lot of great things, but I was watching him in the era where it's like, okay, man, we know. Every career ends, and that's not disrespect. Every career comes to an end, and when it's a guy as nice as Mike Greer, it is sad to see it come to an end. But sometimes it's like, come on, man, what are you doing? Don't do that.
I know.
But yeah, that was something that was shouted a lot in our dorm room in like the late 2000s. Greer, come on! But yeah, Ennis, Vanek, Bowmanville, I believe, was in the mix. All those nice. I believe back then, I think Tim Connolly was still in the mix, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so. In Ennis's early years, yes, I think Connolly might have been. It could be mistaken. And then, obviously, after, the Alexander Kisakov pick at 88, Buffalo selected Steven. Maybe you could help me out here, Steve.
Steven Stardardian.
Stardardian. I'm just going to call him the Sardine. Steven the Sardine. That's his new name. Looks like more like Sardine to me when I look at it quickly.
Stevie Sardine, yeah.
Stevie Sardine. I love it, right? The 88th overall pick, 6'1", another Russian, third one in a row. Another smaller Russian, though, 156 pounds. He needs to put some weight on. He needs to bulk up. Line mates with our second round pick, Poltapov, in the NHL, and is attending the University of New Hampshire next season. You alluded to that earlier, Steve. And 35 points in his first year, 12 goals, 23 assists in 23 games in the the U17 Russian League. Later on that same season, played 85 points in 24 games with the U18 League and 22 points in 10 play. Jesus Christ!
So just to be clear, from jumping from the age of 16 to 17, he went from scoring 35 points against 16-year-olds to scoring 85 points against 17-year-olds for a total of 120 points in less than 50 games.
But the thing that stands out to me the most is the 22 points in 10 playoff games.
That is irresponsible.
Obviously these guys slip, fired on the board as much for reasons. Maybe it's because of the size. People see 156 pounds and they tend to stay away. Like, I don't know. I know size is a big thing, but these kids are going to grow. They're going to grow. Like you put them on the right type of diet, a type workout regimen, they're going to put on mass. And have them just keep on sucking on that Russian gas over in Russia until he's ready to make the main roster here in Buffalo. I'm excited. Obviously, the third Russian in a row. The Sabres are really surprising a lot of people with their list of players that they valued. Again, I just look at these numbers and just how much he projected. In the NHL, 2021, this past season, 30 points in 50 games, playing with essentially men, if I'm not correct, right?
The MHL is the juniors league. But,
it is the juniors league. Okay.
But the
KHL is obviously the
KHL is the league with full-grown adults in Russia.
Yes.
But I believe the MHL, I would generally assume that there's probably a cutoff of like 21 years old. So these are, they're not children like his years past. But they're also not, you're not playing up with guys that came up with Ovi that are still mad that they didn't get drafted like Ovi.
I know. That's another topic for another time. And then we'll go right over to the 95th pick in the draft. Josh Bloom. We finally get a non-Russian hockey player.
Back to Canada.
6'2", much bigger though. 6'2", 182 pounds. 200-foot player with size, something Buffalo always needs. Kid knows how to celebrate goals like a professional. I love to hear that. Think needs to work more outside of bulking up, and in 2021, 14 points in 54 games in the OHL with Saginaw. Another kid that obviously is already big, 182 pounds at 6'2". Still needs to put some more weight on though, more size, because when you have players of that size, you definitely want them to know how to use that size. And this kid's not done growing. Another 18-year-old kid. Hopefully he turns into something special, like a third line scoring winger. That's where when I look at Bloom, that's what I think of. Like he could be a solid, big third line checking line scoring winger.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be happier with somebody like Josh Bloom in our depth than Riley Sheehan and Toby Reeder and the like. Toby Reeder had some boots, much like some of these fast kids. But these fast kids here also seem to have the propensity to put the puck in the net after they just outrun everybody. Reeder did it a few times, and it was pretty. But I think these kids up here are going to have a much higher threshold of winning the foot race, but then also embarrassing the goalie and making a nice goal highlight for ESPN to replay all week. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing all these, because I feel like ESPN is going to do a lot better job of just showing those highlights, the kind of stuff that we're spending all our time watching on YouTube these days, because NBC Sports Network isn't just constantly replaying hockey highlights that we want to see. I'm honestly looking forward to ESPN taking over for 7 years. But yeah, absolutely. In normal drafts, it seems like the picks outside like the fourth round and beyond, those aren't the people that are going to be your big stars. Those are people that you're building for depth, if not for your minor league, then for your major league. Josh Bloom, it's a term we've used a lot now, but he's definitely one of those project players. He's showing some promise, but the kid has a way to go. Thankfully, the OHL is a pretty respectable league. We don't have to talk about it here. A lot of promising talent comes out of the OHL. Just last year, we picked up Jack Quinn, who had an insane amount of points playing on the wing of Marco Rossi, who, of course, went at just a few picks after that. Fine young man. Jack Quinn's, currently making some strides playing in Rochester. He's playing against some full-grown adults now, so it's been a learning curve. But I've seen some. I've watched quite a few Amherst games last season, and the kid's showing some promise. He's getting that confidence back that he had probably playing on Rossi's wing, and he's playing with players like Dea, Fogarty, and maybe Brandon Bureau, probably R2 at one point. He's not playing with superstars like Rossi, but he's playing with good kids. So I think Josh Bloom. There's room to grow for him, even though it's only 14 points in 54 games in the OHL. But again, I think he's a project player. I think he's we wouldn't be picking him. We wouldn't be picking any of these kids at all if they didn't have any promise. And to that said, just 2 picks later is Olivier Nadeau, another Canadian and right winger. But this boy's big. He's 6'2", but has 20 pounds on our friend Josh Bloom here. Very physical. Sounds like he's got a point shot that rips harder than Risto's, but actually hits the mark. He's a pretty strong playmaker. Quality at zone entries, which, this is always a sore spot for a lot of teams. But, the teams that win are the teams that literally never get called for an offsides. That's just rudimentary gameplay that, you don't often see, the Lightning getting called for offsides 2 to 3 times because they messed up a zone entry. They're getting it in there, and they know how to do it every single time. He is a little bit slower with that size, but I think that just might be the virtue of being 18 and 200 pounds. I think the boy just might have had a considerable growth spurt. But that said, it looks like the kid's on an upward progression. 2019 to 2020, he had 23 points in 58 games with the Shawinigan Cataracts. The QMJHL.
The QMJHL, yeah, the Q.
Yeah, the Q in the Q there. But then the following year, in half as many games, he gets 45 points. Same league, same team. So, the kid's and looks like maybe when he was 17, he might have been a little bit smaller. He might have been a little bit lighter. And looks like he grew into his body. He needs some help getting some speed, but it looks like he's a good playmaker. Looks like he can play 200-foot hockey. Looks like he's making some smart hockey IQ plays. And particularly in your depth, like you want that, You want a guy that, clean up your zone, get the puck back, but then you're going to want to feed it to a guy like Nadir, who can feed it up to the guy who can actually finish with it. And, 1, 2, 3, somebody's got to win the puck battle. Somebody's got to see the smart play and make it. And then you need a guy who can finish.
Yep, you're not wrong there. Their next pick, another left winger out of Finland, actually. Another QMJHL pick. I apologize if I'm butchering these names. Viljami Marjala. I'm assuming that might be close. 6 foot, 178 pounds. They definitely took some fun names. I don't have any notes in front of me on here, but Steve, maybe you can help me out.
The biggest notes we've seen on a guy like Viljami, sturdy dual threat winger, excellent shot, low center of gravity, being a slightly lighter guy at 6 feet tall. Just a solid skater, strong balance, but he's not a zippy, super quick kid. I think being over 6 foot kind of slows you down just a hair. All that wind resistance. Maybe if he shaves his head, maybe he'll be a little bit quicker. But
gets rid of some of that salad.
But it sounds like where he makes the most impact is as a power play specialist. From some of these notes that I'm seeing from people like the draft analyst, is that the kid, if he's the guy that's closing it out and you put the puck on his stick, sounds like he can Olofsson and just bury it. And he's also doing it from the left wing.
And people got to remember, too, I know these are later round picks. These are guys that you think are, you kind of sometimes you kind of tune out after the third round. There are a lot of good hockey players that come out of the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. I think Victor Olofsson was a 6th round pick. Guy who was just traded to Philly. Cam Atkinson was a 6th round pick. So these guys, given time to develop, they could develop into good hockey players and guys that'll affect your franchise in the next couple of years. We go next to the first pick of the next round, 161 overall. Here's another fun name.
Do you want me to do this one? I think I can try it.
I don't want name. I can tell you right now, if he makes this team at any point, I am 100% buying this jersey. First centerman taken out of Sweden, out of the Swedish Junior League. Take it away, Steve.
Yes, this is a nice young man named William von Barkenau Lofberg. William von Barnekow Lofberg. My apologies. That is about as Americanized as I can say that, but yeah. So he's a literal Von. I think he might and I don't think that this is a joke. I think some of the notes say that he may come from some sort of Prussian royalty, like not a joke.
Do we got to roll out a red carpet for this guy anytime he comes to town? When he comes to town, like, is this going to be like coming to America?
Look, we're rolling out the red carpet to get the Ruskies over here. So if we got to do the same thing to get Your Highness over here, I'm perfectly okay with that. And at 6'4", 190 pounds, he's another big boy. So, oh no, we just lost our one big boy Ristolainen. We just drafted like 5 kids that are well over 6 foot. I'm okay with it. But sounds like with this kid, but he's got, despite his height, he's got a long stride, which yields a lot of good speed. He's great on draws, when he plays his center position. Sometimes he plays wing, at least Cap Friendly has him slotted in as a winger. But if he's winning draws, obviously he's playing center. He's also got a lot of good He's really good at support down low, so he can help you get the puck back if you lose it. He's good on those pressure points and puck battles on the wall. He sounds like he's just a kid with good hands, good touch. He's just, his numbers just statistically just aren't as impressive as some of these people that have gone to previous rounds, but he sounds like a strong all-around player, big boy. And, with a name like that,
a lot of expectations.
If any of your skills translate on the national level, it's going to be impossible to ignore that. Like, what's the longest name that you can remember? Like, to ever have been put up, to even be put on the back of an NHL jersey.
Darnell Lofberg. Was not ranked by NHL scouting, but at 18, he had a strong season across 2 different leagues in Sweden. Obviously, we said he lifted at 6'4", 190 pounds, another big boy. So most of the last season in Tyring of the country's third-tier professional league, totaling 9 goals and 22 points in 26 games. From what they're saying, it's a pro league. I'm not sure that means he's playing with, men, or if that's just the junior league there. But again, just, Buffalo kind of going off the board, going with an undrafted player, unranked player. But, again, just if you put the time and the development into these players, you hope that they could definitely develop into something, that could affect your franchise in like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, just based on his stat card for the past year, the Malmo Redhawks was a junior 20s team where he also had 21 points in 18 games. So I think that time with the Thuringe team with the Hockey Etten League, I believe that would be playing against some full-grown adults. And again, he wasn't quite at over a point per game, but he was still 22 points in 26 games. So, even when he made the jump from playing against kids under the age of 20 or 20 or under to playing with full-grown adults, even in 26 games, he was still holding his own. He racked up quite a few penalty minutes, so maybe Your Highness has a little bit of a temper.
I love it, Your Highness. Hopefully it turns into a stud, man. That'd be amazing if you find out he's from royalty. Just imagine the T-shirts and the swag.
Yeah, so just to shorten this down, we're going to call him Billy Von Barney. We'll go from there.
Billy Von Barney. I love it.
Billy Von Barney. And until he comes here and shows us that he's worth saying the entire title in Lufberg, we'll just go with Billy Von Barney. Say that 5 times fast.
I refuse to. I absolutely refuse to. With that being said, we'll get to the final 2 picks here. With the 188th overall pick, they took defenseman out of the Russian Junior League, Nikita Novikov, 6'3", 196 pounds. Steve, what do you got for us here, man? What could we expect out of Nikita Novikov?
He's a strong defender. He's got tight gaps. He closes and got gaps. He's got a good stick. He's physical. He can play on the power play if you need him. Some people think that there were some better defensemen available at the time. But, especially when you're trying to scout during a COVID season, sometimes these sorts of picks get made. But that said, again, another big boy, another Russian boy. It would be, in a perfect world, maybe this kid would be a guy who can shoot on the right, but ultimately, the 4th and final Russian of the 2021 draft for the Buffalo Sabres. Another boy who can really rack up the penalty minutes. Only 14 points in 52 games, but had a plus minus of 18 in the positives, which is nice, but then also 61 penalty minutes in that particular in this past particular season in the NHL with the Dynamo. Some of these big boys later in the mix, they might bring a little bit of that grit that the old time hockey fans are looking for. More than anybody in that scenario seems to be the final choice made by the Buffalo Sabres in the draft. Round 7, pick 193, Tyson Kozak from Canada here.
WHL.
He's a little bit smaller, but aside from looking like Harry Potter without his glasses, this seems like the kind of guy that fits the mold of your of the kinds of players like Zemgus Girgensons. He's an incredibly strong skater. Everything he does in the game is done as a defensive offenseman. Hardly anything he does translates to his offensive stats. And you need players like this. You need a guy that's just going to be able to take, like, this is the kind of dude that you want on the penalty kill, putting his body on the line, getting in somebody, like making somebody blink first and maybe challenging somebody before they can get the shot off, and then he just rips it down. This is like a no BS penalty kill defensive offenseman kind of guy. Again, he's the last pick we made, so we'll see if any of this ever translates to the majors. But again, if we're going to go back to that bottom-up pyramid where you need strength in your defense and knowing that if somebody's going to take a shot on you, it's going to get blocked, or if somebody's going to try to take a shot on you, there are going to be two dudes that are going to get right in your way about it, or, ideally having offense so strong that they never lose the puck in the first place. But as long as that base is strong, and it sounds like this kid would be somewhere that can add that kind of defensive offenseman. You need those shutdown guys. I mean, I think he's a center too, so he might.
Yep, he is a center.
He is a center. So yeah, if you can even give me like a fraction of that kind of shutdown Philippe Deneau ability to just win the draw, you lose, it's mine, get over it. I would love that. So I don't, unfortunately, again, with a pick this low in such a unusual draft, I don't have a lot of comparables to work with here. But again, everything this kid does, it almost exclusively translates to his defensive game. The 2019-2020 season, only 29 points in 63 games, but a plus 27 for an offenseman, and only 15 penalty minutes. Like, the kid's not making bonehead moves. He's playing the game and he's keeping the game alive for for his team, for the Portland Winterhawks here specifically, who recently just changed their logo to be something a little bit nicer.
Yeah, I again ending the draft recap there. Obviously, that wasn't the end of the news for the Buffalo Sabres, because late after was it the first round of the draft, we started getting news of the Sam Reinhart deal. Started out late at night. I think Elliot Friedman broke it. We heard right away that Devin Levi was one of the pieces involved coming back to Buffalo, but it took forever to really get the exact details. That we consistently heard Devin Levi and a first coming back, and maybe another player. I'm assuming there was probably some back and forth. Maybe Kevin Adams tried to finagle. But I knew as soon as the Buchnevich deal happened, I knew that was going to directly affect the Sam Reinhart situation, because they are both players that are in similar situations with their free agency status, obviously holding arbitration rights and whatnot. So obviously not the sexiest return. When everything was said and done, news finally broke that it was Devin Levi and a conditional first-round pick, the condition being that it's lottery protected. If the pick ends up being in the top 10, it gets pushed to the following season. You definitely needed a first-round pick. You needed a first-round pick out of that deal. With how good these next two drafts are, you want to try and stockpile as many picks in those drafts as you can. Devin Levi, I remember watching a lot of him in the World Junior Tournament and being overly impressed because – granted, that Team Canada was a powerhouse. I know
question.
They didn't have Kirby Doc, but they still had an unbelievable squad. Led there by Dylan Cousins, who I think finished second in scoring, right behind Trevor Zegras. I was impressed by Levi. He was a late round pick, I guess. From what I read, Roberto Luongo, who was like their goalie specialist now with the Panthers, obviously a Panthers alumni, he really pushed the organization to draft this kid. He was excited for him. He's a little bit undersized, but I was impressed. But the thing of it is, I didn't need Devin Levi. It's nice to have that goalie in the system and have him in the fold. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't need Devin Levi. I definitely wanted a younger forward, a prospect that you could, put into your system right away and help you with scoring, because you do have UPL, who again, Wasn't overly impressive. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. But you do have Eric Portillo getting ready to start his first in his sophomore season with the University of Michigan. We had him on a couple months ago for Two Goalies, One Mic, and I truly do believe in that kid. I think he's the future franchise goaltender. But I think you might have mentioned it, Steve. If we have a goalie tandem of Levi and Portillo, a couple of years from now, I'm very happy with that. So Devin Levi had some insane numbers last year. We're going to bring up a highlight of him right now, real quick.
Video's muted in the actual
round picks and CHL stars. Canada's breakout backstop, Devin Levi, came out of nowhere.
When did you know he was going to be able to handle this?
I did not. I saw him play Junior A last year because he was playing against my son. I think he was outstanding, but was Junior A.
Having never played above Junior A, Levi was not even invited to Canada's summer camp. So this is by far the biggest stage he's ever played on. And he has stolen the spotlight.
With Stutzler, Stutzler moves it. Oh, what a save by Levi!
Levi has faced 118 shots and only let in 3, never allowing more than a single goal in any game. He has a chance to tie or break every major goaltending record at this tournament. His 3 shutouts match Justin Pogge for the most at a single World Junior. He's also on track to beat Pogge's goals against average record. And how about this? Levi, who grew up in Quebec, a Carey Price fan, has a .975 save percentage, which would best Price's Canadian record, .961, and Ilya Bryzgalov's tournament record, .971.
I just want to give my team the best chance to win.
Win gold is what they can do tonight. At Devin Levi's only previous international competition, the World Junior A Challenge in 2019, he was named tournament MVP. It was career-changing, earning him an invite to the World Junior team, and helped him get drafted by the Florida Panthers. But losing in double overtime in the gold medal game still motivates him today.
That taste has never left my mouth. The job's not done.
Levi with a score to settle and a message to send as well. As Bob mentioned, the Panthers took him in the 7th round of the NHL draft. They also selected Spencer Knight, who's starting for Team USA tonight in the opening round. A battle of Panther prospects in the gold.
Wow. So that right there, that is the newest goalie to enter the Buffalo Sabres organization. Again, as I said before, he really did stick out to me a lot in that tournament. It was hard not to notice him and how good he was. I have his elite prospects page up here. From outside of what you already saw there at Northeastern University in the NCAA, it doesn't seem like he played any games. They obviously, it must mean they didn't play at all. But in the World Junior Tournament, 7 games, a .75 goals against and a .964 save percentage, which is outstanding. The year before with the Carleton Place Canadians, the CCHL, 37 games played, 1.47 goals against, and a .941 save percentage. This kid has never had in the last, so many odd years, had a save percentage dip below 0.90, which is extremely, extremely, extremely impressive. His tournament statistics, outside of what we just said, the World Junior Tournament in 2020 in the WJAC, 6 games played, 286 goals against, and a .917 save percentage. Outstanding goaltender. A lot to be admired with him. He stands at 6 foot, which isn't the biggest goaltender. I know a lot of goalies kind of stand right around 6'2" these days. That's your prototypical standard size for a goaltender. But 6 foot, 180 or 185 pounds. So he has some growing to probably put some weight on. I know one of the scouting reports on him, he tends to, because of the lack of his size, tend to let in some goals because of that, which, I mean, it's just expected of any smaller goaltender. I'm 5'11" on a good day, and I remember, granted, I didn't play in the high levels of hockey, but it comes with the territory. unfortunately. And I'm definitely excited to see what this kid brings to the fold, where he starts next season, whether he goes back to school at Northeastern University, comes over, signs his pro deal with Buffalo, goes straight to Rochester. I don't know how the semantics of that work, but I'm excited to see what this kid has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, again, with UPL having an injury or two here or there, look, I get that some people think that it might be disrespect to somebody like UPL to get another goalie prospect, but ultimately, having insurance in your prospect pool for goaltending is how you avoid having someone like Carter Hutton as your number 2 in a situation where Carter Hutton should not be your number 2 in this league or any league. Having that insurance, because that said, having watched as many Amerks games as I did last season, even in the AHL, UPL is still just doing okay. The guy needs to find his game even at that professional level. So I think UPL needs to spend this season getting that bounce back year, getting his swagger back, getting that mojo, as you are one to often say. And then if this year bodes well for UPL, then maybe next year we have a conversation about getting him in the big leagues. But right now, if we try to integrate him back into that, I don't think he's ready. I don't know if it's the injury that needs to heal. I don't know if it's just his confidence level, but I think that kid needs another year, like regardless of whatever happens this year with our goaltending. We'll touch on that later, of course. But I think UPL and in Rochester is exactly where that young man needs to be next year. Ideally, this year goes well for him, and then next year we can have another conversation that maybe he can be our number 2. We'll see what happens. But that said, if UPL is still going to be taking the number 1 slot in the AHL, I can't really remember who's actually still down there as the number 2. I know Tokarski's still technically on the books for us. I think he's the only goaltender still technically on the books for us. We could re-sign Lekkas. We could potentially re-sign Hauser. Obviously, the Ullmark debate is one that needs to unfold here, or just the question mark that hangs over Ullmark needs to be answered. Hutton's contract's up too, but I don't think anyone's super upset about that. So I think that's going to be one that we just go, thanks for playing. But that said,
when it comes to this situation, that I kind of said it last year pre-trade deadline, if he's not going to commit to signing with Buffalo, they should have traded him right then and there. I understand that you don't want to lose a guy that you took such a long time to develop. You put a lot of time and effort into his development, and he played very well. But you don't want to lose something that valuable for nothing. And now you're hearing, obviously Kevin Adams made it known in his when he addressed the media yesterday that he is making it his number 1 priority to get Ullmark back under contract with the Buffalo Sabres, which I'm happy to hear about. I mean, I don't know what other opportunities are out there for Ullmark to be a number 1 or be a 1A, not a 1B. I'm sure there might be, but I think his best opportunity would be to come back here to Buffalo. I hope he knows that. I just don't want to see us pay a large amount of money for a goalie who has issues playing a full season because of injury. Everybody who listens to this show, who follows me, knows that as a goalie, I'm not a big advocate of paying goalies a lot of money. You look at what happens with Florida with Sergei Bobrovsky, $10 million a year. You have, Carey Price up in Montreal making $10.5 next season. Only 1 finals appearance. I hate saying only, but in my opinion, had it not been for the state of the league, having to change the divisions and have there be an all-Canadian division, I don't know if Montreal even makes it to the finals. I don't know if they even make the playoffs, and that's not a knock against Carey Price. He's an unbelievable goaltender. But, everyone knows in the regular season, Carey Price tends to put up just average numbers. And when you're playing against the same teams over and over again, rather than playing your Boston, playing your Tampa Bays, playing your tougher teams, your Washington
playing your Floridas.
Yeah, exactly. All the traveling and, just the hardship of a full 82-game season. I don't know if Florida even makes the playoffs. I'm not Florida. I'm sorry. Montreal even makes the playoffs. I know that's absurd to hear because they made it to the finals, but it's, that Canadian division, that Northern division was not very strong. It wasn't. No, I think Toronto won it by double-digit points.
Yeah, they won it by a mile.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. Wasn't even close.
Yeah,
so, with that, I just, I'm just not a big advocate of paying goaltenders a lot of money. I'm not willing to really. I'm tough. It's tough for me to even want to pay him $5 million a year. I hope it doesn't get to that, but if it is 5 or north of that, it needs to be short term. It can't be anything long term. Make a 3-year deal at the very most.
And I mean, 3 years would be perfect. It would keep space open for UPL to integrate himself in as a number 2. If we only sign if Ullmark becomes the 1A, if we only sign a 1B for just a year, just as a rental, essentially, for the Ullmark insurance in case once again he does get injured, because that's always been the biggest knock on his game. When he's in the net and he's at full capacity, he's an impeccable goaltender. But that doesn't happen as often as it needs to be that number 1 guy that's getting paid like $6 million plus for a long-term deal. He just hasn't done it. And and obviously I don't want to see anybody get injured, but you do have 2 goaltenders in the system right now that tend to get injured in both UPL and Ullmark. So, Ullmark's not even part of the conversation until he signs. So not yet.
Right. I hope they get that whole situation squared away, because it's not. I know reports came out today that Buffalo is already looking to Shane Wright in the next draft, which is signaling tank 2.0, because it was so fun the first time around. You heard Kevin Adams
wore this hat.
Yeah, the hat they tried to pawn off on you instead of your Where's Kim jersey. I love it. With that being said, we don't know what's going on with Jack. Things started to seem to heat up with the Minnesota Wild. There was so much talk for 24 hours surrounding the pieces that might be on the table for them. Boldy, Rossi, Greenway, Fiala. So many good pieces that could come back to Buffalo's way. And
I've even heard some rumors that maybe Rask or Kokkonen could be part of the deal.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'd imagine at some point in that deal there has to be some salary dump. Maybe it's Dumba. I'd take Dumba on this blue line 100%. Why not? You can afford it.
Dumba's definitely better than Risk. If we want another guy who can hit people, Dumba's better at actually playing defense than Ristolainen. So
100%, I agree. He's not the.
You keep that grit that all the
old-time
hockey fans want, but he also has the capacity to play skilled hockey from time to time.
Granted, he hasn't projected to be, or he hasn't ended up being what he was projected to be, but he's still a good defenseman, a very good defenseman. So I would take Matt Dumba in a heartbeat.
What's the alternative? Re-signing Irwin?
Yeah, let's not. And Kevin Adams' comments when he did address the media on Jack, he says he has no problem if Jack is on this team at the start of training camp, which signals to me that he has a very high value for Jack Eichel and he is not budging from it, which is what I want to hear.
Good.
I do want to hear that. Do not budge, because there is some pressure. I know
king's ransom.
Yeah,
I don't care.
There is some pressure on him. I know he had nothing to do with the Ryan O'Reilly trade, but that pressure is going to fall on him because you cannot screw this up.
Of course it is.
I get it. It's not his fault. He had nothing to do with that. The ownership, I think, had something to do with it, and it is the same owners, but that had nothing to do with Kevin Adams. And Kevin Adams, Jason Botterill can be blamed directly for us losing Sam Reinhart, not signing him long term. Those comments came out too, that he was always willing to sign a
bridge deal.
Yeah, he always wanted to sign a long term deal, and at one point you get fed up with the losing. You get fed up with people not believing in you. And I get it. I get why Sam wanted to leave. I totally understand. You want to go somewhere and win. I get it.
And Florida's pretty close.
Yeah,
but that said,
they have a lot of good hockey players down in Florida. A lot of good hockey players.
In the return, it would have been nice to get some because the more you look at the Florida pool, the overwhelming majority of their forward core is going to need a new deal next year. But a couple pieces that need a new deal this year that I'm not sure still fit into the Florida formula. One, which would be the one I would prefer to potentially get the rights to sign to. I think I believe he's an RFA, and that's Alex Wenberg, and then a UFA in Sam Bennett. Again, neither of these players are incredible pieces, but at the same time, if you're losing that depth at center if you're losing that skill in center at Sam Reinhart, and you're and you know that these people are stacked at the forward core. I know that the rumor was Vetrano, which is fine,
Yeah.
but we have.
I would have
we already
loved
have
me some Sam Bennett.
We have too many forwards as it is. So if you could have just held out and I don't know, maybe taken a second round pick, but also gotten the rights to Wenberg, Levi, and a second. I don't know. Am I mad at that? I'm not completely mad at that because Wenberg would be it gives insurance because again, right now the depth, the center is Cousins, Middlestat, ? Cody Eakin.
Cody.
No, that's not okay.
Thanks, Ralph. Appreciate it.
We need something else. Are we moving Girgensons to the third line center? And what if he comes back next year? He's still on the books. If he's not injured anymore, he could be playing hockey. We could get the.
I don't hate Zemgus Girgensons. I want to make that clear.
I don't hate him either, but
I was upset when they signed him to the deal they did because I thought he could have came cheaper. But we still have free agency. What is free agency a week away? So there's still a lot that could happen. But I know we've taken. No, go ahead.
And even with if Jack even still stays on the books, we've still got $30 million plus.
Yep.
That we can spend.
There's money to spend. Yeah. How about this? How about this? If Jack is on this team next year, screw it. Absolutely screw it. Call up Alex Ovechkin. Let's offer him 2 years, $12 million per. Let's just really go for it, man. We gotta put fans in the seats, right? Alex Ovechkin will do that. I don't think he's ever leaving Washington. That's kind of sort of a joke, but go sign Ovechkin, offer him $10, $11, $12 million a year. Go come here, play for 2-3 years. He's going to score. He's going to score, and you put him. I mean, that'll make Jack Eichel happy, right? Pass the puck to Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah, I mean, there are worse players to pass it to.
Taylor Hall. I mean, he just signed up.
At the end of the day, it was a fucked shit situation where it's he was playing 4-dimensional chess. He knew exactly what he was doing when he did it.
Yeah, and it didn't help that our franchise player was playing injured from the first game of the season. Didn't help at all.
Taylor Hall wanted to play for Boston, and he used the Buffalo Sabres as the three-way team in that trade.
Yep.
In a year where it's we just don't have the money to sign you right now, but just give it a minute.
Yeah. But we're gonna wrap this edition. I know it went up a lot longer than a previous I'll Hang Up and Listens, but we're gonna wrap up. Should we just call this Hall? I know, can we Hall videos? Hall. I know it's Hall is HAUL, but I mean HUAL.
Well, we could just call them hang-ups.
Hang-ups.
Because usually we're just griping about something. I got to hang up about this.
Yeah, I got to hang up about that. Yeah, it's not a bad idea, actually. All right.
Let's just call them hang-ups.
Maybe give us your suggestions in the comments when we post this. What we should call these little I'll Hang Up and Listen videos. With that being said, Steve, I know this went a little bit longer than expected, but I think we got down a really good draft breakdown player by player. The addition of Devin Levi, the departure of Sam Reinhart, and again, we'll see what's to come here with Jack Eichel. I know we're tired of talking about it, but I just one last thing too: the fact that it was leaked by the press that Terry Pegula essentially wants to move Jack out west. Why would you let that get out there, man? Why would anybody let? Now you're just giving teams even more leverage. I know. Just shut your mouth.
Shut up, Terry.
Just stop it. You pay Kevin to do a job. Let him do it. You've clearly shown that you cannot make hockey-based decisions because you may love the sport, but you don't know the sport. You don't know the ins and outs of it. So I just leave it alone. Let Kevin do his job.
I'm going to say it till my face is blue. The only reason they haven't been run out of town is because the Bills are good.
Because of the Bills.
And the reason the Bills are good is because they made decisions to hire people who know what the fuck they're doing to do smart stuff.
Yes.
And until they do that for the Sabres, we're going to have this. Just give up. Just be rich people who own something and take the glory when we win. But get your hands out of it because you don't know what you're doing.
Agreed.
Just stop.
Leave it alone.
You're bad at what you're doing.
Yes,
Hire people who are good at it. God damn it. I don't want to have to keep yelling about this. It's so annoying.
It's absolutely infuriating.
I know you want me to stop saying fuck, but fuck.
I know. Well, listen, obviously it's been a lot of fun here. I've had a grand old time. I just want to bring this up real quick before we leave off. I had my dog out for a walk right before we decided to record. Took him out to the docks so he could chase the ball around. It's been real hot. Obviously, he's a longer haired Siberian Husky, so I felt bad. Took him down to the docks. He loves the water, loves going in. So we're going to bring that up here. There he is, Dom the dog. Look at him. Look at him get that ball. Getting puck, Steve. Comes out with it every time. You love to see it. You absolutely love to see it.
You gotta win the puck battles.
Yeah, and he's got the energy. He carries the puck out of the zone and, drop back pass there. Obviously, to me, pretty much, right? And then,
sometimes you got to pass it back to your goalie.
He lost
interest. It's the only move to make.
Lost interest right away. But with that being said, this has been your latest edition draft recap, Sam Reinhart trade recap of I'll Hang Up and Listen. Guys, thanks for joining us. I know this went a little bit long, but we wanted to make sure we did our due diligence and got you all the proper information on every player drafted and the return on Sam and Devin Levi. So with that being said, I will hang up and listen.